Greetings, everyone. Dr. Brian Scott with you. We have been sharing insights to the end times with you for several years now. I should say several months now, about 18 of them to be exact. Excuse me. And we've been looking at Bible scriptures that show us how close we are to the end of the age. We've also been looking at world events that show us how close we are to the end of the age. Jesus gave us a lot of world events that would take place as we approach the end. He said you'd see nation come against nation. You'd see wars and rumors of wars. You would see pestilences, earthquakes, famines, floods, fires, etc. Paul wrote of perilous times in his letters to Timothy in the scriptures. And he described perilous times, which mean exceedingly dangerous times, as the way men and women think, how they act, how they carry on, he's talking about their nature and their character. So Jesus talks about events. Paul talks about the way people treat each other. Both of them contribute towards the very end. Insight to the End Times has been examining all these things, and today I want to examine where we are as we approach a time of more authoritarian, dictatorial type leadership in the world instead of democratic freedoms. I hope you'll stay with me for the next couple of minutes. Statistically, over the last few years, we have seen people's freedoms being taken away from them, restricted by government edicts, and we've been seeing an elected official, whether they be a president or a governor or a prime minister or a premier or whatever the title may be, making decisions backed up by their political party, and that becomes the rule of law for the time frame. Well, here's some interesting statistics along that line. A German study done in the year 2018 found that 1 in 6 countries in the year 2006 had free and fair elections. 1 in 6, that's like 16% of the countries in the world had free and fair elections. By the year 2017, only 1 in 14 countries. That's down to about 7%. Only 1 in 14 countries had free and fair elections. That's a pretty massive shift in just an 11-year period. It indicates we're being moved into a system with more autocratic type rule. Now, a 2020 Democracy Index study found that only 23 of 167 nations in the world are rated as full democratic governments. Only 23 out of 167. That's less than 14% of the world's countries. That means 86% of the world's countries are not in a democracy. They're in an authoritarian or a dictatorial setting. But here's what's even more daunting is of these 23 countries, they only contain 8% of the world's population. So 92% of the world's population is under an authoritarian, dictatorial type leadership. This is a continuation of global freedoms declining around the world, massively, hugely. Nobody takes note of this. No one pays attention to this because it's the NIMBY principle, not in my backyard. Therefore, what difference does it make to me? Even in the 7 most democratic nations in the world, which include Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, we've all suffered a decline in our freedom indexes. The U.S. was down by 11 points. That meant it was positioned in the 25 countries with the largest declines over the last 10 years. There are reasons for these declines going on. It seems to me that, and I had this from one of the great prophetic teachers of this last century. He said, our politicians are more interested in votes than in doing things of a statesman nature. I said, what do you mean? He said, a statesman does what's best for the country over the long term. That's not what's best for his reelection purposes. Well, I had to agree with him. That was the case. We have seen environmental groups, as for instance, these are protest groups. These are groups that have focus on one or two minor things, or not minor things, but one or two things really catch their attention. They go hard with them. And such as the environmental and interest groups. They've basically stormed our nation and turned our nation from a very prosperous oil and gas producing nation into one that's almost benign of that. It's led to our government getting in line with them and canceling our pipelines and so on and so forth. And our production facilities have just about dried up. Most of the internationals who worked in our country in this field have left the country, because why fight a government that won't let you work and do what you're capable of doing? They've done so in the name of green energy. Yet if you examine our nation, in the size of our nation and the standings that we have in this realm, we rank as one of the lowest nations in the entire world. But that makes no difference. My point is simply this. We have fallen into this global eliteness with authoritarian type leadership and determination. Now, here, and it may be the case in your country as well, but our governments, our officials are elected. Our members of parliament or the members of Congress, the members of the House are elected in elections. Some of them maybe not what we call fair and free anymore, but I'm not here to discuss that. But once elected, the leader of the party says, now that you're part of my team, it's an all or nothing. So you're going to be 100% behind everything we decide to do, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, whether it violates your beliefs or not. This is the way it's going to be, or we'll show you the door. That's not the way it used to be. And really, when you think about it, that's dictatorial. But that's what we are facing in our country. I'm sure it's being done in many other countries as well. I've seen very senior members of our government, very well-known, very established, and very competent, kicked out of the party because they went against the grain. They said, no, that's not right. We shouldn't do that. So this is another one of these things that's occurring. The number of free elections has declined tremendously. The number of free countries has declined tremendously. The number of free people in our elected offices, they've been silenced for the most part, and we're left with a situation where democracy isn't free anymore. It's now autocratic. It's now dictatorial. It's now do what I say or don't play the game. And if you don't focus on what's best for the country, if you focus on what's best for re-election, as seems to be the case most of the time, then how long before things just implode? But this is exactly what the Antichrist is looking for. And this is exactly what his strengths are, is to cause all kinds of strife and envy and everything being upset. And we're in those days. I'm talking about the end times. And I'm telling you that end times operate in the natural as much as they do in the spiritual. And we're seeing it everywhere in the natural. And time's getting really short. I'll see you tomorrow.